Medicaid laws change. So some of the stuff that, I mean, I've given this seminar several times now. I've changed it. There's a whole section I took out because it no longer applies. They just legislated me right out of existence. The changes that occur are generally designed to reduce the benefits that you get. So it makes it increasingly less desirable to plan to get on Medicaid. But Medicaid is still pretty much the only game in town. It's a huge part of the government's deficit. A huge part of the government's deficit comes from caring for the elderly in the last 2 years of their lives, caring for the permanently disabled. Those two groups, the permanently disabled and the elderly, comprise 25% of all people on Medicaid. They consume over 75% of the Medicaid budget. Medicaid budget is the single biggest line item budget item in the Pennsylvania budget, by far. More than roads, more than education, Medicaid. So it's a huge cost. Something is going to give. It's not going to give in 2015, but it is going to give at some point. So your planning needs to bear that in mind, at least a little bit. If not Medicaid, what? Well, some people might look at long-term care insurance. You know, that too isn't exactly a great option for a lot of people because it turns out it's very expensive and they have a hard time paying for it. It's sometimes hard to get the insurance companies to pay the claim. But, you know, if I spend $10,000 for a long-term care insurance premium every year, I'd have to pay that premium for 12 years before I'd pay what it costs to be in a nursing home now for 1 year. So if I'm 85 years old and I'm saying, it seems fairly likely that sometime in the next 10 years I'm going to wind up in a nursing home, or I might want to be at home getting in-home care so I can avoid a nursing home, shelling out 10 grand for a long-term care policy for the next 3 years means I spend $30,000 to get a long-term care insurance benefit that might be worth $500,000 to me. So if I can spend 30 to get 500,000, I mean, if Jim Cramer offered you that on Mad Money, you'd all be calling in and signing up for whatever he was selling. That's a great return on your investment. But most people are just like, oh, it costs $30,000. I don't want to spend that. You've already spent this money. It's already gone. You're deciding how you're going to spend it. Saving it isn't really an option. They give us tax breaks to buy the stuff. They even created the Class Act to help us buy it, but they then had to repeal that. That was part of the original Obamacare thing, and they couldn't fund it. So I kind of just covered what's on that slide when it comes to the benefits and things. You know, you have to get it from a good company with real strong financials because companies are dropping out of the long-term care insurance market left and right. I used to be a much more positive about long-term care insurance than I am now. It's not that it's never a good idea. It's just not a good idea as often, I think, as it is not a good idea. But it is an option for some people with certain financial circumstances. You got to have a little bit of money to make long-term care insurance work. And you probably don't want to have too much money or it stops making sense. So it's kind of in that upper middle class sweet spot is where long-term care insurance tends to work best. If you happen to be a veteran or if your spouse happens to be a veteran, there may be veteran benefits available to you to help pay for some of your long-term care costs, particularly costs for in-home care or what most people still refer to as assisted living care. That care isn't nearly as expensive as nursing home care or 24-hour round-the-clock in-home care. And sometimes the Veterans Administration will throw $1,000 or $2,000 a month toward that cost, which combined with other income and things may allow you to get pretty adequate coverage either in-home or in a personal care home kind of a facility that would allow you to be there for quite some time and not have to go through a lot of benefits. But if you're not a veteran, you may not qualify. Well, you won't qualify for the veteran benefits, and even some veterans won't qualify for it, depending upon when they served and other factors. They have program or requirements for the VA benefit that is similar to Medicaid, but generally a little less restrictive than Medicaid, although they're moving toward more restrictive, more Medicaid-like requirements to get VA pension benefits. The other important thing about VA planning, a lot of the things that we do to help people qualify for VA benefits are actually poisonous when you're going to try to apply for Medicaid. And a lot of people applying for VA are going to need Medicaid within 5 years. So you have to be very careful that what you're doing to get on VA benefits isn't in the same time disqualifying you for getting on the Medicaid benefit that you're going to need a little bit later, which is worth substantially more than the VA benefit that you're trying to get. And I've seen a number of situations where people have screwed up their planning by focusing solely on the VA and not really wondering how it integrates. So you've got to work with people that know both programs if you're going to do that. As I said, this is not a do-it-yourself activity. You're going to learn things along the way about how to plan, but you really have to work with experts. You need the chef. You're not Gordon Ramsay. You're not going to teach yourself how to cook that fast. If you want to eat like the king, you got to hire the chef. Most planning experts aren't. They may be very good at other types of planning. I'll use my friend Tom Work. Tom Work is by far the best estate tax planning attorney in Berks County if you're a high net worth individual. I like to do that kind of work. I'm not as good as Tom is. Tom has probably forgotten more about that area of the law than I ever knew. He is excellent at that. I don't think he does much Medicaid planning, and I wouldn't go to Tom for this type of planning. It's just not in his wheelhouse. And I'm pretty sure if you did go to Tom, he would tell you, you need to go see Bill Blumer or Bob Kreitz or Eric Fabrizio or Fred Nice or some of the other guys that do this more often than I do. Because I deal with people with $50 million estates. They can handle people with $50,000 savings. And they're the people that need the Medicaid. So just because you happen to know a good lawyer does not mean that that good lawyer is going to be good for this kind of work.